Hello chums, and welcome to episode 5 of the Mid-2000s Supercar Shootout, where I gather the most desirable motor vehicles from 20 years ago and subject them to a series of challenges. The 14 contenders have now been through 7 tests across the first 4 videos. In the first 3 episodes the cars were unmodified and were rated on their top speed, fuel economy, acceleration, braking, lap time and subjective feel. For episode 4, the cars were all upgraded to 700 performance points and tested for tyre wear. If you haven't yet seen those videos, I highly recommend watching them first. To summarise what's happened so far, the top speed test had some fairly obvious results, with the Veyron, Enzo and Corvette making up the top 3 spots, while the Ford GT impressed by coming in 4th. The Lamborghini Gallardo was the only real surprise, with its close ratio gearbox making it one of the slowest cars here. The fuel economy test threw up some more varied results. While it was mostly a reverse of the top speed test, the Lamborghini Gallardo again scored no points, while the Corvette, and to a much greater extent the Ford GT and Dodge Viper, achieved excellent fuel economy. In episode 2 I ran a standing start test, adding the 0 to 60, 0 to 100 and 400 meter times together to give points based on the lowest overall. The Gallardo finally scored points, coming in 3rd, while the usual heavy hitters took the rest of the top spots. The biggest shock here was the Mercedes-Benz SLR, underperforming and scoring no points. I then ran a braking test from 150 miles per hour, which the SLR won, while the Ford GT scored no points for the first time. In episode 3, I took the supercars around one of Lake Maggiore's shortened versions for a time trial. Annoyingly, the Bugatti won despite being atrocious to drive. The Gallardo came an impressive 4th, while the Mercedes SLR once again underperformed, only just beating the Dodge Viper of all things. I then rated each car based on subjective driving feel, which isn't really anything more than my irrelevant opinion. Either way, the SLR redeemed itself for being an absolute hoot to drive, while the Murcielago scored points for its V12 engine sound, and the Ferrari 430 outperformed for being one of the best all-rounders. In episode 4, the supercars became racing cars as I upgraded them to 700 performance points. After reintroducing the contenders, all gussied up in their new liveries, I put each car through a tyre wear test, since it's unlikely you'd be entering unmodified cars into races with tyre wear. Unsurprisingly, the Bugatti, Mercedes SLR and Lamborghini Murcielago suffered with the worst tyre wear, while the TVR Tuscan, Ferrari 430 and Ferrari Enzo did well. But the biggest surprise was the Chevrolet Corvette outright winning the test. Speaking of, the Corvette is still the only car that has scored points in every single round. So what are we doing today then? Yep, we are replaying the fuel economy test. Originally I wasn't planning on doing this, but the difference in fuel economy between stock and upgraded is quite stark, so I thought it was worth retesting. The test itself is the same as before. Laguna Seca, 20 times fuel consumption, 0 wind conditions. However far the cars get is multiplied by 20 to get the true mileage. That number is then divided by the 100 litres used, because every car in Gran Turismo 7 has a 100 litre fuel tank. From there the number is multiplied by 4.54, because that's how many litres there are to an imperial gallon. I sent the Bugatti Veyron out first, since it performed so terribly last time. Without upgrades, it covered 3.1 miles, but here it has less power and less weight, so it actually improved, covering 3.5 miles. That works out at 3.18 miles per gallon. The Murcielago was not much better than the Veyron last time out, but here it actually ran out of fuel before the Bugatti, resulting in a rather dire 3.09 mpg. The bar has officially been lowered. The Ferrari Enzo was close to the bottom last time out, but thanks to losing a great deal of power and weight, it gets 4 miles per gallon this time around, a slight improvement on the stock car. The same goes for the SLR McLaren, though to a lesser extent. It just beat the Enzo last time out, but this time it matched the Enzo with 4 miles per gallon. Thanks to its boosted power, one car that does not improve is the Porsche Carrera GT, which manages a rather dismal 3.27 miles per gallon. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the Lamborghini Gallardo is also not very good, with 3.63 miles per gallon. Much more surprising is its lesser sibling. The Audi R8 gets a massive boost in power and revs over stock, which means it gets a massive spanking to its fuel economy, achieving 3.36 miles per gallon. The Ferrari 430 isn't much of an improvement, achieving 3.81 miles per gallon. My theory is that the insane rev limit is partially to blame. The Alfa Romeo 8C runs out after the same distance, giving it an identical fuel economy figure to the Scuderia. The Corvette scrapes a somewhat decent result, achieving 4.09 miles per gallon. That is just about beaten by the Ford GT, which manages 4.18 miles per gallon. Running out of fuel in pretty much exactly the same distance, the Dodge Viper matches the Ford's semi-respectable fuel economy. All three of the Americans are just about beaten by the Porsche 911 GT3, which manages 4.27 miles per gallon. However, once again, all of the contenders have comfortably been beaten by the TVR Tuscan, which gets a whopping 4.81 miles per gallon. So, amazingly, the Veyron didn't come last. It didn't score any points either though, so it doesn't make much difference. The Audi R8 disappoints by having some of the worst fuel economy here, despite one of the smallest engines. The Ferrari 430 and Alfa Romeo 8C are tied for fuel economy, but as per my arbitrary rules, only one can score a point for 8th place. Since the Alfa Romeo is slightly cheaper, it scores the point. Both the SLR McLaren and Ferrari Enzo manage surprisingly decent results given their exotic nature, while the American cars impress as usual. Unsurprisingly though, the Porsche 997 and the TVR Tuscan occupy the top 2 spots, just like last time. And once again, the Chevrolet Corvette scores points. It's worth noting that there's a heck of a lot of variation in how efficient these cars could be when you have the freedom of setting a car up for a performance point rating. You could, for example, reduce the power more and reduce the weight some more, both of which would improve the fuel economy. This is part of the reason why the Corvette, Mercedes and Enzo have done so well, because they've either been power limited, or in the case of the Merc, are much lighter than standard. So, what does that do for the scores? The Corvette was nipping at the heels of the hypercars in the last episode, but a decent result has thrown it right into the mix. 2 points for the Ferrari Enzo places it in first, just ahead of the Bugatti, while the TVR Tuscan scoring an outright win has placed it in the top 6. I'm half expecting those points to be the Tuscan's last. Lower down the order, the Porsche 911 has jumped a few places while the Viper remains third from last, despite a good points haul. The Ford GT and Ferrari 430 are stuck towards the back of the grid, but it's severely underselling how well both cars have performed. Meanwhile, the Audi R8 is still very last indeed. It's even more last. So, that was episode 5 of the mid-2000s Supercar Shootout. Sorry this one has been a bit shorter. Join me next Friday for the next episode. Is there a test that you want to see carried out on these cars whilst they are in their 700 performance point guise? Let me know in the comments below. Did you enjoy this video? Then please do like, subscribe and smack my bell so that you get notified of future uploads. Do take care, and ta-ra.